growth momentum, and for that growth momentum or sustained economic growth which we want to ensure, primarily we are looking at building the ecosystem with structural reforms which will go on. Reforms have been carried out. We are continuing to do the reform activities, so it will continue with an aim to make sure that we create enough environment for improving productivity and making sure employment is generated. Also, technology, 20th 21st century, this century is completely driven by technology. So we will ensure that technology is brought in to benefit the common man, to make sure common man benefits in the sense of ease of doing living, or for his business to prosper, or for farmers for greater productivity or better logistics, whatever. So technology for benefiting every common man, and above all, with all this, inclusive development, sabka saath sabka vikas. And that is why you heard me bringing in schemes which have good allocations for bringing better health facilities, creating a cadre of people, not cadre in that sense, but a bulk of people who can come in as health workers, paramedics, and so on, and also making sure we are able to provide dignified opportunities for Divyangjan. Mental health has also received a lot of attention. So these are the side for Vikasit Bharat and making sure Sabka Vikas hoega. But the idea is the advantage and the momentum that we gained since after COVID by increasing public capital expenditure will continue. We've announced that 12.2 lakh crores are coming through public expenditure this time. It is 4.4% of the GDP. I'd like you all to please notice that, which is the highest, at least in the last 10 years. It could even be highest if you were to take data earlier. No increment in capital expenditure, sustained fashion, has happened ever before. This one marking 4.4% of the GDP. Then what are the kind of things which will happen through it? You will have dedicated freight corridors. I've named Dankuni in the east, Surat in the west. Then I've also highlighted that 20 new national waterways, not national highways, national waterways are being planned. And again, there those are going to pass through some of the critical mineral areas. Orissa, where the mineral rich state, you have the waterways taking it to the port, and the two ports have been identified, Paradip and Dhamra. Similarly, we are also making sure that the coastal cargo movements will be enabled through a cargo route, so that through the coastal area we are able to cut down on cost of movement of goods. City economic regions, developing them is a very big new measure that we're coming up with. And for that, an allocation of 5,000 crore per city economic region. Imagine the amount, 5,000 crores in 5 years, 1,000 crore per year per city is being given, and the emphasis is going to be largely on tier 2, tier 3 cities. And then talking of infrastructure further, with the capital expenditure coming with the big number, you're having also the high-speed rail corridors. 7 of them announced. The destinations are clear, so that they become the bridge for all these economical robust centers. So those are for making sure that the infrastructure and the capital expenditure are getting tied up, and the country benefits from the ripple effects that these can bring in. The 7 strategic and frontier sectors in which we've highlighted that will increase productivity and also have new investments come in and give emphasis for India's own brand on those things is on the biopharma sector. I think that's going to be a big change in the way in which we are looking at giving capacity for those who are able to research, who are able to undertake research and development. So 10,000 crore initiative again over five years for domestic biologics and biosimilar production. This is a clear message and backed with enough substance that India's lead in the pharmaceutical sector should be kept intact, but at the same time bring in newer ways of helping the pharma sector, and also because it has an impact on human health. Semiconductor mission had two major announcements that will improve the India stack and also the IP related matters. Electronic components manufacturing scheme for 40,000 crores. It's a major encouragement for electronics to become self-sufficient. We have also announced establishing rare earth corridors so that India can face and be able to meet its own requirements with its materials. So once we identify and are able to explore these minerals and process them, make them available for us, our dependency on external sources for bringing in the rare earths will be lesser. And we've identified the states where we want to establish this rare earth corridors. They are going to be in Orissa, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, and Tamil Nadu. So these are very important developments, and they are going to have multiple decadal impact on the Indian economy. Our dependence on magnets and rare earths will be brought down. 3 dedicated chemical parks, again for reducing our import dependence. High-tech tool rooms for research that will be set up in 2 locations. Very important thing is about the construction equipment being imported. That could be for building tunnels or metros or high energy and also heavy duty equipments which we are relying on imports. We want to manufacture them in India, and that is why I said, how does it affect the common man? It affects because firefighters today have novel, new, big ticket and small, very small firefighting tools and weapons or equipments. We don't have them in this country. That's why if there is a fire accident in some very congested area, our equipments are not able to reach those points. Whereas there are equipments which today are produced abroad, which can navigate those small corridors and go save people's lives. Whether they or huge ones, all of which we want to make sure that we will have production in this country itself, whether they are tunnel boring or anything else, from small to big, we want to bring in those very impactful infrastructure into India. So we'll support domestic manufacturing. Then container manufacturing is another which we'll support. I think I've gone in detail talking about the textile support in various forms. One very important announcement was made, Mahatma Gandhi Gram Swaraj initiative, which will make sure khadi, handloom, handicrafts will all be brought in, and one district, one product will all be brought in this initiative, and we'll be able to support rural artisans, rural workers, and handloom weavers in those areas. Legacy industrial corridors have got saturated. Manufacturing happening there is now very constricted because they are not able to bring in newer robotics and others. So we want to upgrade these legacy industrial clusters so that they become cost competitive and efficiency comes into these places. Even more important is the champion MSMEs, small and medium industries, entrepreneurs, MSMEs, who are going to be given all the support, and 3-pronged approach is being taken up there. We are giving equity support, we are giving also liquidity support, above all professional support for them, so that MSMEs, the equity support is supported by a 10,000 crore SME fund, growth fund. Above all, we are also topping up the Self-Reliant India Fund with 2,000 crores. So MSMEs should not feel any dearth of resources for equity. Similarly, they shouldn't feel any difficulty for liquidity in their hands, because the TREADS platform will now be treated almost as a backed up, security backed up instrument with which they'll be able to discount and get their monies. For professional support, we're working with the chartered accountant and cost accountant institutes so that they can create corporate mitras who can help these MSMEs in filing their returns, doing their accounts, and so on. Above all, for youth and training, there's so much. You've heard the speech, so I won't I won't want to take your time on it. High-powered education to employment enterprise, standing committees being formed so that they can recommend measures for service sector as a core driver of Viksit Bharat. Part B concentrated a lot on tax and related concessions that are being offered. More importantly is the process simplification which has been announced. So elaborate measures have been taken. You will be able to also seek clarification if you want. New export opportunities for fishermen who can go into the economic India's zones, high seas, and also assess and access the global markets. The one very touching, and I really was moved by this proposal, is where we have identified 17 drugs or medicines which are going to be basic custom duty exempt, which are important for cancer patients. Similarly, 7 more rare diseases are added to the import exemption list of the import duties. Baggage clearance and personal items which you bring in when you travel are all being given enhanced duty-free allowance. Besides that, there are quite a few direct tax and indirect tax proposals. Decriminalizing the penalty proceedings and support to the IT sector are some of the high points. As an opening remark, I'll conclude here. I'm sure you'll be able to ask questions and seek clarification. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll start this question, taking the questions. First question is 17. 17.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Shishir here from Hindu Business Line. Ma'am, my question is that under the miscellaneous capital receipt, the provision is 80,000 crore rupees. And last year, the provision was 47,000 crore, which has been reduced to 37,000 crore rupees now. Does this mean that there will be more equity monetization this year, or there will be more focus on the asset monetization of CPSEs?
So you've got it rightly. The intent is that we will have a very strong asset monetization plan in place. Last year, ma'am had announced in the budget that there will be a pipeline prepared, which is being done. So we hope to reap the dividends from that.
238.
Ma'am, Timsi Jaipuria, this side from CNBC TV 18. I just wanted to know the rationale behind the hike in STT in futures and options.
So, first of all, I believe some confusion. In fact, the question that you have asked rightly reflects the announcement itself, that the only change made in STT is in the future and options. All the other STT rates remain the same. The primary objective of raising the tax rates on STT has been that it is felt that when you look at the volume of transactions in futures and options, whether you compare it to the size of GDP or size of the underlying securities market, it is largely in the realm of heavy speculation, which results in losses to small, retail, unsophisticated investors. And the government's intention is to discourage speculative tendencies. And the increase in rate is essentially in that direction. So it is meant to essentially handle the systemic risk in derivative markets. Even after this increase, however, the rates of STT will remain modest compared to the volume of the transactions that is happening there. This is the reason. 54.
मैम तरुण शर्मा फ्रॉम जी बिजनेस. मैम आपने पूरा बजट जो है वो न्यू एमर्जिंग सेक्टर पे बड़ा फोकस रखा है. मैम मेरा सवाल आपसे दो हैं यदि आप अलाउ करें. एक मैम आपने जो एक्साइज ड्यूटी का कैलकुलेशन किया है वो पिछले बजट एस्टिमेट से इस बजट एस्टिमेट में तकरीबन 22% की ग्रोथ देखने को मिली है. दूसरा मैम जो आपने एमएसएमई के लिए कहा कि जो ट्रांजेक्शन्स होंगे उसके लिए आप एक्सचेंज प्लेटफॉर्म का यूज़ करना होगा, तो क्या मैम ये CPSEs के लिए कंपलसरी होगा जो डिस्काउंट ट्रेडिंग की जो बात है? थैंक यू।
I'll take the second question, ma'am. So, हाँ, ये CPSEs के लिए मैंडेटरी होगा कि डिस्काउंटिंग एज वेल एज नॉन डिस्काउंटेड बिल्स दोनों को ही ट्रेड्स पे करना होगा, ताकि वो 45 दिन में भुगतान MSME को कर पाए, और ये हर तरह से चेक कर लिया गया है कि ये हो सकता है. So we want to make CPSEs as pioneers. We hope, like ma'am has said in her speech also, that other corporates will also follow.
Increased by 22% from last year B to this year.
Because there is from 1st of February, all the tobacco products have come back into excise, and all those revenues will account for the increase of the next year.
209.
I'm Prakash Predashi from ET now. The budget has announced restructuring of PFC and REC. What will this restructuring look like? And does this also mean that these NBFC will be merged going forward?
What is the later part of your question? That these NBFCs are not
Will be
going to?
merged going forward?
Yeah, I've said we are rationalizing it. You'll get to know as we go forward. We want to streamline it, and therefore we'll be taking some steps. We'll let you know the moment we decide how to go about it.
234.
Hello, ma'am. Harsh Kumar from Business Standard. Ma'am, two questions. One is, you said that a high-level committee will be formed on the banking reforms in order to 2047. Are we going further for any kind of merger or something? Since government is continuously saying that we need at least two of the big banks, in at least of the top 20 banks. So are we going towards that?
No, first of all, when I say that it's going to be a high-level committee which is going to look into it, the terms of reference will be prepared, and we are looking at committee to go into the entire expanse of the banking sector so that they come up with recommendations which help us to plan for banking for 2047. We need, by the time we become a Vikasit Bharat, 2047 is our goal. We need to understand what are the other steps that we need to take in the banking area, and based on the recommendations, we'll go forward. But we have the Secretary, Department of Financial Services. We'll ask him to also give speech. Please.
Ma'am, I think you have rightly responded. There are large number of aspects relating to the banking requirement. For example, the credit to the GDP, commercial credit to the GDP ratio low, and the expansion of the banking network, and what kind of the procedures currently we have that is impeding both the deposits as well as credit. All those aspects will be looked at by an expert panel committee, and well, we will definitely have TR, and then also consult the all the stakeholders, and the government will take a view on how to lay strong foundation for 2047 Vikasit Bharat.
Ma'am, one more question. 229. Left side, yes.
Ma'am, Premangshu from Ananda Bazar Patrika. Ma'am, have you consciously avoided announcing any bonanza for the poll-bound states? And secondly, can you elaborate on this East Coast corridor, industrial corridor you announced?
See, the industrial corridors are very critical for supply chains. We need a predictable mineral, rare earth and magnet related products to be made available for India's manufacturing, whether it's lithium ion, whether it's automobile sector, whether it's the new age solar. You need these rare earths to be processed and be made available. We have enough raw materials. The coastal areas are rich in these minerals, and therefore States also felt, I mean, I must credit that the interaction that I had with the finance ministers pre-budget, many states felt that there are rare earths which they can utilize. We then sat up in the budget group that we have, Revenue Secretary, DFL, Secretary DA, and thrashed out, talking with the states. What are the kind of things that we can do so that their capacities to extract these minerals, process them, make them something which the industry can benefit from. So India can be less dependent on imports of these materials. That is where, having spoken to states, we thought it's very important to recognize the corridor and give a policy for it so that industries can invest, private sector can come in, governments, state and center can come together on it. That is where these corridors were announced. And looking at the success of the defense corridor, I can confidently say these rare earth corridors will make that big a difference to the Indian economy. The first question, I think there's enough to cover all the election states. If I do, you will ask me, why have you done it only for the election states? Now I've done it for election and non-election states as well. You want me to spell out what has been done only for the election states? I'm quite happy to do it.
262, front. At the front, please. Here. Front.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Sapna Das here from CNBC TV 18. Two quick questions. Just wanted to understand the gross borrowing at over 17 lakh odd crore. Would the government look at it as being on the higher side? Just asking that. And within that also, if you look at your net tax revenue stream, of course, B to RE it's higher, and a lot of concessions have been given away both on direct and indirect taxes. But the trend seems to be a bit flat, around 28 lakh odd crores. So if you could explain to us, how is this entire thing looking? And second, ma'am, in terms of the disinvestment aim, 80 odd thousand crores, would this also include IDBI stake sale sometime in FY27, ma'am? Thank you very much.
So you've covered a number of secretaries all at one go. So on the borrowings, no, we don't think it's on the higher side because the net market borrowings are in the range of 11.73, which is been plus around that number for the last couple of years. The larger number is because we have 5.5 lakh crores which have to be repaid this year. So to that extent, we don't think that it's a large number. We have a plan how to manage this. And according to that plan, which also gets released from time to time, the markets would also know as well as all of you.
4. Okay. So, on the tax stream, because of some concessions that were given this year, there has been some course correction. But if you look at the next year, the direct tax is growing at 11.4% and continues to be 3.1% of the GDP. The total collection would be 6.9%. The indirect tax excise is growing very healthily because of the base correction, the base which has got added. Customs too is showing a decent policy. So on the tax revenue, I think we are looking up. And even GST, as you would have seen the collection figures today, after rate rationalization, the buoyancy which we had expected, and in this hall we had discussed about it, you can see that coming back on the tax.
Hi, ma'am. Meghna Mittal from Money Control. The fiscal deficit target that you have set for next year from 4.4 to 4.3 is being seen as very, very gradual. Is there a specific reason, or is it because of the global uncertainties as one of the major factors for being such a gradual fiscal consolidation path?
I would have thought you'll appreciate it being gradual. Because particularly fiscal, drastic changes don't go down well. One or the other section gets hurt. We will have to be gradual, but yet keep it well within that band which gives confidence, and to show that we care for fiscal prudent management. There's no point in me dropping it to, let's say, 4. It has to be steady so that the economy goes in a steady speed. So it is a responsible number and realistic number. It's not as if I wanted it to be so gradual. It is a responsible number. We should achieve it and equally not bring in any kind of turbulence anywhere.
Thank you. From the center flank, 190.
Thank you and congratulations on a very comprehensive budget.
Before you start, I was going to look at PIB and say this side is being ignored.
Yes.
But good that he called you.
Thank
Come.
you. I'm Aprajita Saxena from CNBC International in Singapore. I'm very curious because you started talking about tech, and I want to ask a question about the ISM 2.0. There are those on the outside who say that India sort of lags when it comes to AI innovation, especially innate innovative LLMs. Is the strategy of ISM 2.0 to sort of become part of the global value chain, or are you more positioning towards India creating its own native LLMs? Thank you.
I think Kashmini Vaishnav, the minister, has been speaking extensively about this. There are several aspects of it. We want to be sure that in the semiconductor domain, we have every expertise for all those 5 major chip or modeling or the infrastructure, design, every aspect of it. So he is talking about creating capacities within the country to be able to have that kind of a infrastructure well laid out within the country. And similarly, if you're looking at the way in which our startups are working, using AI, and very clearly we have also shown a path that it is not just the large language models, but also smaller ones, medium-sized ones, which can serve the requirement of your economy. So AI in India, particularly when you have a huge demographic dividend, will have to give us results to ensure that our people have work and also the opportunities are going to be enticing enough for the youth. It cannot replace human efforts. So we are at the same time redefining for ourselves, if I may use that expression, on how to use AI, what is the capacity that we have to create, the kind of infrastructure that we have to lay in the ground for it. Equally, the products which come out of it will have to benefit our people because our youth are revving to do more and new. For them to do something new and for them to do something more, we have to create benefits out of AI rather than push along with AI unthinkingly that it doesn't serve our people. So I think these many different factors play in making a decision on semiconductor. And that is why semiconductor ISM 2.0 looks into these aspects as well. And I'll ask the CEA to speak a bit on it because he spent a lot of time so that he could write effectively capturing what's happening now. Ananta, you want to say anything on it?
Actually, we have to see the semiconductor mission and the announcements related to the rare earth corridor, which ma'am talked about a few minutes ago. All of them as part of the framework that we presented a couple of days ago here on the strategic resilience part. So, in fact, many elements of this ma'am's budget speech focus both on equipping us to handle the AI-related technology as well as skilling the population in areas where they can be immune to some of the AI-related impacts as well. So it covers both dimensions, and therefore the semiconductor mission, the rare earth corridor, and also some of the Part B announcements ma'am made about the various electronics and the manufacturing sectors were all part of the initiatives to make sure that we make ourselves strategically resilient in a very fraught global environment.
138 at the back side.
I'm Rishabh with NDTV Profit. Just wanted to ask on the buyback tax, the rationale behind it, because was it essential to do it now? Because in 2025, there were a lot of companies that came out with significant share buybacks. Also because, and also do you foresee some sort of a reduction in buybacks? And secondly, on pollution-related schemes, the outlay has been very stagnant, but pollution as a problem remains. Is this not a policy priority for the government now?
On the buyback, I'll have a Revenue Secretary brief us.
First of all, on the buyback, I like to clarify. I hope that the point was clear enough in the speech also, that it is in fact, a relief. It's not a tax, additional tax. It is a relief. Buyback tax system was changed to make it as a dividend income, which is income at the applicable income tax rate at the hand of the shareholder. It has been corrected now, and we have put the tax to be in the hands of shareholder as a capital gains tax, which long term, for example, will be only 12.5%. So there is a correction and a relief which has been given to the shareholders. All that has been done is, the whole objective of doing that change at that time was misuse of a tax arbitrage by promoters. So the change made for promoter is that additional buyback tax on them, which again keeps things status quo for them. So even today, the marginal rate at which they would have been paying the tax as a dividend, which is at their respective income tax rates, we have kept it at 30 and 22. If it is a corporate, 22. If it is an individual, 30. So as far as promoters is concerned, it is status quo. As far as the other shareholders is concerned, it is actually a very big relief. So that is probably what may make the point a little clearer, the announcement itself clearer.
76 at the front side.
So pollution is a priority with government, and not everything has to appear at the budget speech, is how I would put it, ma'am. So we are working with many state governments on projects related to air pollution, even water pollution. There is a significant budgetary outlay on sewage control as well as drainage. And as it was noted, you would have seen the Finance Commission recommendations also. A large portion of the Finance Commission grants to the local bodies, urban and rural, is tied to water and sanitation, particularly I would say sanitation. So pollution of all kinds remains a top priority, and there are different ways in which we are trying to tackle it.
Hello, ma'am. Ma'am, I am Monica from Business Standard. Ma'am, I have two questions. Ma'am, I am here. Ma'am, I have two questions with regard to customs. Ma'am, in your budget speech, you said that honest taxpayers will be able to close their case and they can pay the additional amount in view of penalty. So I want to know whether this is a customs amnesty scheme, and if you can just provide the contours of this scheme. And also, ma'am, Economic Survey flagged the need for convergence between transfer pricing, which comes under income tax law, and customs valuation. But there was no mention in your budget speech. So is there any such proposal being considered by the government?
Both on the direct tax and the indirect tax. This is not an amnesty scheme. This is essentially an offer given to the honest taxpayer who would otherwise, when he gets to know that he has to pay the duty, he will like to pay it. But because our laws require him to also pay a penalty on that, the negative connotation associated with being penalized, which he has to obviously disclose at some point of time, does create a situation for him or an incentive for him to rather dispute the duty, even though he may not want to do it. So the window that we are giving to the taxpayer is that you will, if you are willing to pay your tax or whatever is the duty, instead of penalty, that same amount you can pay in the form of an additional amount. So it will not be either a relief or an amnesty. At the same time, this amount that you pay will not be treated as a amount which you have paid as a penalty, and therefore that negative connotation will go away. You may have seen that there is another announcement of a similar nature on the income tax side, where when it comes to the cases of underreporting today, there is a provision under which you have to pay tax, interest on tax, and a 50% penalty. If you are willing to accept the demand and not go on appeal, you need not pay the penalty of 50%. You can go ahead and pay your tax and interest, and the matter is closed. What we have done is expanded this window and included even misreporting cases, where penalty is otherwise 200%. But there again, we are telling him that you can settle it by paying the tax, the interest on tax, and this 200% get reduced by half. You pay 100% as an additional income tax. The idea here is that if you are an honest taxpayer, accept the fact that you have to pay the duty. We will not like to brand you by using the word like penalty. That is these two windows are essentially meant to take care of those situations, which is why reference to an honest taxpayer. Yeah, we are examining that separately.
194. Left side, yes. Back.
Ma'am, this is Amitod Singh from CNBC International. Congratulations to you and your entire team. I have two questions. The first is around foreign investors. There were a number of expectations that taxation structures would be changed, particularly when you think about things like withholding tax. So what we want to understand is whether that was even discussed within the government. And my second question is 15% defense spend increase. How much of that has to do with global uncertainty?
Revenue Secretary can answer on the first question. See, global uncertainty is something which definitely occupies all the officials' mind when we are preparing for the budget. But I won't attribute it to be the cause for any one step. Across the board, we kept that in mind. So it's not the cause for any one thing that we've done or one thing which we did not do. That's kept in our mind. Our macroeconomic fundamentals are strong. You heard the CEA speak that despite you having a macro sound economic foundation, you're still sort of facing a world which is uncertain. And therefore, when currency, Indian rupee versus the dollar becomes an issue, you have done everything within the country to make sure your fundamentals are fine. But the uncertainty globally is affecting on many grounds, and we are seized of it for everything that we do, not for one particular thing, but ours.
Yeah, I think today we need to look at what has been announced in the budget. So we would rather focus on that, because there would obviously be many of the issues which would be discussed and deliberated. But what has come out for you before in the budget is what is there, and we should probably focus on that. And if you saw that there are many announcements, especially which are addressing the needs for attracting investment in India, bringing more certainty, both for the residents who interact with their related parties, as well as for the non-residents who otherwise do business here. There's a whole host of those announcements. You would appreciate that what, for example, has been done in IT services is a change which is completely, and it's a fully comprehensive change, which practically will take care of just about 30 companies need to now sign APAs. The rest, all 11,000 odd, will be covered under one or the other system of certainty of taxation, either through safe harbor rules or through the APA agreements. So this has been a major change. In specific sectors where we felt that the residents needed certainty, we have provided that, whether it is in the data center, whether it is in manufacturing, electronics, even for the expats, if they are going to stay here, the experts for a longer time. On the data center, I just thought I'll take this opportunity to clarify, because there was some speculation about what has been done. The thought process in this is that a global entity which is providing a kind of cloud-based data services uses data centers all over the world to provide services to the customers. So it is very difficult to connect one-on-one as to which data center has resulted in what type of revenue. So the international entity of this nature would like to set up data services centers in India, which is a net economic plus for us, because it adds to that level, scale and level of economic activities. It has strategic purpose too. So the arrangement we have done is, just because that entity will set up data service centers and will use this as one of the many to provide services globally, should not become a cause of uncertainty for it that its global income will get taxed here. So that is the certainty which we are giving to it. Quite naturally, the data service center, which is located in India, will be taxed depending on the way it is positioned. And that entity will be selling its services to customers in India through a reseller entity, which again gets taxed. What we are excluding from taxation is this global entity, which is essentially doing cloud-based services, using data services centers across. And we do not want it to be deterred from enhancing its business footprint in India to provide such global services.
I'll just come in to add to that point on foreign investors, to point out one or 2 points on the Part A side also, which are important. One is that this was this ask from AIFs for a very long time, that most AIFs in our country are formed as trusts. Their request had been for a pretty long time to consider if the LLP Act can be modified and amended to align it with the functional requirements of AIFs. That has been announced today, which is a very big move forward, as it will allow them to, the amendments are going to be of such a nature that by becoming LLPs, first of all, the liability will get limited. And then there are going to be amendments which will also allow for document filing, rationalize for entry and exit of partners, and similar such things to make it easy for the AIF partners. So that's one of the announcements today. The other was the announcement on the PROIs and the relaxations given therein of how much they can invest in a company individually and together. So those limits have been significantly enhanced, and all of it has been rationalized in line with OCIs and NRIs. Other than that, the FEM NDI rules, we intend to review it for two things. One is, again, we are continuously in touch with investors. There are asks over there. So instead of doing it one by one, this shows the intent of the government to actually reach out and address the world which is interested in investing in India and make it easy for them to do so.
214.
मैम मैं आलोक प्रियदर्शी हूँ CNBC आवाज से। मैम मेरा सवाल यही है कि जो सवाल STT से रिलेटेड है, सिक्योरिटी ट्रांजैक्शन टैक्स से, मैम यहाँ पे मैम जो पॉलिसी है फ्यूचर एंड ऑप्शन को लेकर सरकार की क्या पॉलिसी है, थोड़ा सा स्पष्ट करें। और दूसरा कि जो STT बढ़ाया गया है, बहुत ही जैसे रेवेन्यू सर ने कहा कि बहुत मामूली बढ़ोतरी की गई है, तो क्या इससे जो सरकार की पॉलिसी कि रिटेल इन्वेस्टर्स को ऐसे जो बहुत हाई रिस्क की इंस्ट्रूमेंट है उनमें निवेश से एक तरह से कॉशन करने की पॉलिसी है, तो क्या इससे ये मकसद हासिल होता है क्या?
I'll ask the Revenue Secretary to go into the details, but आपका विषय जो मकसद के ऊपर बात कर रहे हैं ना, मैं पिछले बजट के समय में भी इसका एक्सप्लेन भी की। We are touching only the futures and options. STT otherwise बाकी सब का ट्रांजैक्शन के ऊपर कोई नहीं किया, मगर जहां स्पेकुलेशन, हिंदी में सट्टा बोलते हैं, स्पेकुलेशन ज्यादा और समटाइम्स हाईली रिस्की, क्योंकि हमें मैसेज आता है लोगों से कि इधर बहुत लॉस भी फेस कर रहे हैं लोग जिनके हाथ में इतना एक्स्ट्रा पैसा भी नहीं है जिससे वो स्पेकुलेट कर सकते हैं. सो दिस नॉमिनल इंक्रीज इज प्योरली एम्ड एट हाई स्पेकुलेशन ओनली टू डिटर देम. मकसद बोल रहे हैं, हाँ, उनको थोड़ा डिस्करेज करने के लिए. हम इसके खिलाफ नहीं है, जरूर एक्टिविटी जो होता है उसका रेस्पेक्ट करते हैं, मगर इतने लॉस और इतने छोटे छोटे लोग का लॉस को सरकार देखकर कैसे आप चुप रह सकते हो? डिटर करो थोड़ा उसको पीछे हटने के लिए, बस उतना ही.
So the tax is only one element of the kind of supplementing or supporting that policy, which is what I explained before. In as far as the rest of what and how this market has to be regulated is probably for the market regulator to respond better on that aspect.
67 from the center.
I'm Pallavi from CNN News 18. Little political question because the reactions are coming in from the opposition parties. Rahul Gandhi specifically says that the budget has failed to go in for a course correction and that it not address the real concerns of the country.
With due respects, I don't know what course correction he is referring to. Economy and its fundamentals are strong. Global uncertainty is facing many of our sectors for whom we have brought in so many different schemes for those small and medium enterprises, for textiles, for leather, for shoe uppers, for people who are working in the rural areas, schemes for benefiting them, for even the farmer and value addition, for women entrepreneurs who are chote groups, self-help entrepreneurs, the she marts that we've come up with. These are ways in which we are reaching out to the common small people to make sure that they don't have to face big changes in their life because of any volatility coming from outside. They could be contributing to exporting small things, but different uncertainties can affect them equally. Many of them have been shown as successful because you see when you go there, Lakpati Didis is a fantastic difference made to women in the rural areas. Now we are bringing them together to sell their wares. Are these not measures through which we are reaching out for the poor, the small, those in a different difficult terrain or in rural areas. And with all this, the fundamentals of the economy remain strong. And that has come out even in the economic survey. So, well, politically you want to criticize, you're welcome, please do it. But if you want to give me the facts on which you're basing your argument, I'm willing to hear and willing to reply to that.
16. The center.
Ma'am, I am Bani Kinkar Patnaik from the Economic Times. Ma'am, I think probably one of the most important features of this budget is that for the first time in probably many years, your effective capital expenditure at 4.4% of GDP is going to be slightly higher than your fiscal deficit, projected fiscal deficit for the next year. So it means, I mean, in other words, you will be using more than your entire borrowed resources. You will be deploying that in productive spending. So I wanted to ask you that, you know, whether it is going to be the new normal in the coming years. And ma'am, one clarification I needed. This VV Jiramji scheme, you have allocated more than 95,000 crore. At the same time, I see that, you know, Narega has also got 30,000 crore. So is it going to be on top of that, or because Jiramji scheme is supposed to replace this Narega scheme?
I'll ask the Expenditure Secretary to respond on that.
On the new scheme, the GRAMG, the budget provision has been provided exactly as what you would have seen when the bill was being presented and the act was there. So we have gone exactly whatever is required has been provided. Now on the old scheme also having some money, in fact, it's a legacy of the inefficient way in which the scheme was, the MG and Narega was being implemented by the states. So there is some carryover of liabilities, 30,000 crores. So that we have taken the responsibility of verifying and fulfilling it. So that's why we have kept that, but otherwise fresh implementation will be on the new provisions.
I would say that the fact that we have an annual budget means that we review everything annually. So I will leave it at that. We have done our fiscal math, and I think we come with a certain credibility on the fisc that we are confident of meeting, and while adhering to our commitment to higher capex. And fiscal deficit financing, as we have always done, is through a mix of market borrowings as well as NSSF. So that will continue. So there's not many major changes like that. Thank you.
37 at the back, yeah.
Hi ma'am, this is Shrimi Chaudhary from NDTV Profit. Just wanted to understand that this one-time foreign asset disclosure scheme, how that will be different from the similar scheme in the past, and if you could elaborate a contour of that, and also is there any estimation of undisclosed foreign assets being done by the department?
So this scheme is meant first of all for small taxpayers. There is a ceiling of the amount that can be disclosed. This window was provided for the first 3 months when the act was brought in, the BMA Act, and that time people utilized it. What has been found is that there are many small taxpayers who, because of their ignorance, etc., have not been able to do proper disclosures. So this window is being given as a one-time 6-month window for such small taxpayers, the list of which some idea of who they are has been given in the budget speech also. So there are two streams in this window. One is of the people who have paid their tax, the income is disclosed and is quite transparently known. All that they failed to do is they were not able to disclose the asset, foreign asset that they had because of that, which means they will be able to prove that the income was put to tax. However, the asset was not, just the only thing they did not do is they did not disclose it in their returns to the income tax department. So this is the window B, where we are saying that if you have a foreign asset of up to 5 crores, you can pay a fine of 1 lakh rupees, which today under the act would have entailed them a fine of 10 lakh, a penalty of 10 lakh rupees and prosecution. So you will get both immunity from penalty and prosecution, and you can declare those assets. This is category B. There would also be category of people who may not have been able to or have not properly disclosed their income. This is the category A, for which this limit is 1 crore rupees. So 1 crore rupees of foreign asset or income, if they have not disclosed, then they can disclose it during this window. In this case, however, they will have to pay the tax as well as 30% tax and then 30% additional tax on top of that, and a certain amount of interest. Again, they will get immunity from penalty and prosecution. The idea is to essentially help those NRIs, returning NRIs, students, some professionals, people who have gone out, people who may have got ESOPs, any kind of such assets that they may have outside. They'll be able to disclose it and be able to protect themselves against penalty and prosecution and come clean. And it has been structured in a manner that it addresses only small assets. And secondly, it is something which will be helping them to also, get away from all the procedural problems of penalty and prosecution.
25.
Hello, ma'am. Ruchika Chitravanshi from Business Standard. Ma'am, while you have stated that global uncertainty was playing on the minds of officials across the board, if I may ask you, what was the one challenge that you were trying to address, or economic concern that you were trying to address in this budget?
And we said global uncertainties play in the minds of all the officials. It is a truth that all of us are watching, that global uncertainties are really of the magnitude that we've never seen before. So naturally, we had to assess for ourselves the various ways in which these uncertainties are playing out. So all of them are equally important.
243.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Kriti Ambe from Informist Media. Ma'am, this year's nominal GDP projection, the projection of 393 lakh crore, does it take into account the upcoming base year revision, or is it possible that this number would undergo further revision when MOSPI releases the new base year and releases its estimates based on the new base year by the end of February?
Let the CEA and the Secretary EA answer that.
The 393 lakh crores or 10% nominal GDP growth was arrived at based on the existing GDP base year and the methodology.
Ma'am, if I could follow up on that, back in 2015 when the base year revision had happened, the previous year's 14 and 13 numbers went up, nominal number went up by what, odd 9 lakh crore. So if FY26 number goes up by that sort of magnitude, or even if not from 357, it goes to 360, your fiscal deficit estimate would come down even further. So do you think there is possibility?
You began your question with the if, right? No answers from my side for ifs.
Sure, thank you, ma'am.
45. I think
what? Sent.
Hello, ma'am. This is Pushpita Dey from the New Indian Express. So a lot of custom duty reductions have been introduced. So how do you see the impact on the revenue, and also particularly for the consumer goods like 50% duty reduction, will there be any measures to ensure there is no dumping after the reduction happen? And also, not particularly related to the budget, after the recent Tiger Global Tax Supreme Court verdict, do you see there will be any impact on the foreign investment for India? Thank you.
Customs duty, the reductions, etc., which have been given have a logic for that sector, the need for those items to be brought into India, and customs duty not to add cost to it. So there is an economic logic of why it has been done. And if you have seen, most of them are meant to essentially enhance either manufacturing or value addition within India, or help the cause of exporters who are using those imported items to export items from out of India. So this is a very conscious sectoral call. For each sector item, the value chain has been analyzed, based upon which decision on whatever moderation or whatever calibration of duties were to be done have been done. The second part in terms of revenues, etc. is concerned, what you would have seen is there are a lot of custom process reforms that have been proposed. And the idea is essentially to enhance the volume of international trade, which should fetch us more revenues rather than playing on the rate itself. So we do hope that these process reforms will encourage more people to kind of, export in the process, probably the part of global value chain, more exports, and duty or revenues will be a result of that buoyancy.
I just want to add one additional point to what my colleague Revenue Secretary said. If you look at many of the customs duty reliefs given in Part B, you have to read them in conjunction with the announcements made in Part A on manufacturing. So you look at electronic component manufacturing and you look at the concessions given in Part B, there is a certain logic, alignment and synergy between the two. So that's exactly what you need to focus on.
So actually, the fear of dumping there, will you be monitoring it? We are looking at only those sectors where we need to have our production capabilities improved, and raw materials shouldn't be a constraint on those items which are necessary for us. So it is a very calibrated way in which we've done it.
39.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations, ma'am, and everybody. Karishma from Business Today. Ma'am, I just want to also continue the question on the rural employment scheme. A couple of states have shared skepticism and apprehension if they'll be able to fiscally absorb it and if they have the appetite on the cost sharing for the scheme. Ma'am, second, just a follow-up question, if there could be an update given on IDBI disinvestment.
I think the Agriculture Minister has spent a lot of time interacting with states to tell them what actually is Vikasit Bharat Gram, the G Ramji program is about. It is not about money. We have continuously given. That's why you heard Expenditure Secretary say, Manrega, balance which had to be carried forward, had to be provisioned for, we had to pay them back. Although inefficiently spent, we have to still give them, though we made the provision. And Vikasit Bharat Ji Ramji, as was at the time of the act getting passed, whatever was predicted was going to be provided, we provided for that. So I think there need not be any doubts in the minds of what is going to happen about rural employment guarantee scheme. In a way, the new scheme actually understands how efficiently it can function in the ground. Inefficiencies have been removed from it, and the money allocation proves that we have put the money where we spoke about. So that's fine. All disinvestments which have been approved by the cabinet earlier, that list will continue to be before us, and we will carry forward every such. And on specific, if you want to know, we have our Deepam Secretary. Please do tell.
I think one thing we must keep in mind is that we follow a composite strategy, and disinvestment and closure have to be seen together as part of that composite strategy, which enhance or increase the participation and efficiency of the private sector. As part of that strategy, as Honorable FM said, whatever in principle approvals we have obtained for both disinvestment and closure, say about 50 of them, half of them have already been completed, which means about 12 closures and 13 strategic disinvestment transactions. The other ones are on track. That is why we keep aspirational targets, because we are fully on track and fully committed to completing each one of them and taking to a logical conclusion. Thank you. Yes.
81, backside.
नमस्ते, मैं कृष्ण मोहन शर्मा, भारत एक्सप्रेस से। मेरे दो छोटे छोटे सवाल हैं। एक तो मुझे याद है कि दीपावली के दिन मैंने पूछा था कि फार्मास्यूटिकल सेक्टर में क्या करेंगे, तो आज आपने पिटारा खोल दिया उसके लिए। आई एम वेरी हैप्पी। दूसरा सवाल मैम ये है मैम कि यूनिवर्सिटी टाउनशिप बनाने की आपने 5 बात की, क्योंकि डेवलप्ड इंडिया के लिए बहुत ज़रूरी है। लेकिन प्राइमरी एजुकेशन और सेकेंडरी एजुकेशन जो कि हमारे बैकबोन है ग्रोथ का भारत के लिए, उसके लिए इसमें क्या है? और दूसरा, अभी मैं एक शो करके आया हूँ, उसमें लोग पूछ रहे थे कि मिडिल क्लास के लिए बजट में क्या है, बजट में क्या है?
हायर एजुकेशन के लिए जब हम 5 यूनिवर्सिटी हब्स बनाने जा रहे हैं, it is very important to recognize that आज प्राइवेट सेक्टर में यूनिवर्सिटीज़ बहुत आ रहे हैं। स्टेट्स का मन लग रहा है कि और हायर एजुकेशन सेंटर्स ज़रूर होना चाहिए। इन सब को सुनने के बाद हम हायर एजुकेशन में और ऑप्शंस ले आ रहे हैं, जिससे हर तरह का कोर्स उस हब्स में बने। और स्टूडेंट्स डोंट नीड टू गो आउट इन केस उनको वीज़ा नहीं मिला और बोरोइंग करके जाना है। उस क्वालिटी का एजुकेशन भारत में ही हो, इसीलिए जितने भी स्टेट्स वो क्या बोलते हैं, चैलेंज मोड में आकर के बोलेंगे कि हम ज़मीन देने के लिए तैयार है। मल्टी स्पेशलिटी हॉस्पिटल जैसे बनाते हैं, ऐसे यूनिवर्सिटीज़ विद different types of courses can all come and set up, and this will also mean partnering with universities abroad. So higher education में जो flexibility के साथ function करना है और हमारे students जो बाहर जा रहे हैं उनको उसी quality के education इधर देने का, ये नहीं कह रही हूँ मैं कि हमारे यूनिवर्सिटीज़ में quality नहीं है, मगर aspirational लोग को कुछ और सर्टिफिकेट जब चाहते हैं, वो सर्टिफिकेट क्यों ना भारत में ही ना मिलना, why don't we provide for it? And इसीलिए वो स्कीम ले आए. So it does not immediately mean that we are not going to be spending on primary and secondary. Primary and secondary में इतनी सारे states के साथ collaborate करते हुए PM श्री स्कूल हो, नवोदय विद्यालय हो, प्राइमरी से लेकर हायर सेकेंडरी तक बहुत सारे कदम पिछले 5 साल में उठाया गया। न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी आने के बाद उन सबको अभी भी सपोर्ट मिलेगा सेंटर से, हम कम नहीं कर रहे हैं बजट को।
22
Hello ma'am, good afternoon. This is Surbhi from Business Today. Ma'am, firstly I wanted to understand the impact of your tax proposals both on the direct and indirect tax side and as well as the net implication. Ma'am, secondly, a very basic question in terms of your new fiscal anchor on central government debt reduction. What are the measures that will be followed on that? Thank you.
So on the new fiscal anchor, we, like it has been announced, the glide path will be continued, and fiscal deficit, in other words, shall be the operational target to attain the debt to GDP. So it's not that we are going away from the fiscal deficit, it's not going to be the monitorable target. The target will be the debt to GDP that we are going to be monitoring, but both do work in tandem, and that is understandable. That's the way we are anchoring this.
So I have already explained the growth rates for the tax the next year. So if you look at the buoyancy, for example, for direct tax, we are taking the buoyancy would be around 1.14. So which shows that we expect that with all these reforms, the tax growth should become and would be growing at a rate faster than that of the economy itself. So we do expect the tax income, the tax revenues to be sufficiently buoyant in the coming year.
46
this side, left.
Ma'am, this is Priyansh from Money Control. I have 2 questions. One is on the GST. So the GST numbers that the target for FY27 is 2.5% lower than this year's target. So although there has been, this is due to the reduction in rates, but when can we expect the growth to be in the positive territory? And second question on the nominal GDP number, have you taken under consideration the conclusion of the trade deal with US on the nominal GDP? And if it is concluded, can it be higher?
So the nominal GDP, as the CEA explained, has been calculated on an as-is where-is basis, which includes the US-India trade deal as-is where-is. When things change, we will see how the data shows up.
249.
GST revenues, what is the question? Can you repeat it? No. You will have to account the fact that compensation cess is not going to be there the next year. So you'll have to exclude that, which is why you would see our monthly figures are showing other than compensation cess. That is the right number to look at.
Hello, ma'am. This is Priyoshmita from Informis Media. Ma'am, since you mentioned that gross borrowing for FY27 is not particularly high, can we expect more buybacks this year as well to bring down subsequent repayments? And secondly, are you looking to switch bonds with the RBI as well to manage your repayments? You did this this year in May after a gap of 2 years. Thank you.
So the reason we do buybacks and switching is basically to reduce our repayment burden and to mitigate the bunching up effect, and also to manage the costs. So we did a significant switching of high coupon securities this year. Next year, this 5.5 lakh crore which needs to be repaid, as they keep coming up, we will be taking decisions closer to those, while work is continuously going on this in one division of DEA.
24.
Mike.
Yes, ma'am, this is Rajesh Singh from ANI. My question, could you clarify some measures in the budget to boost savings? Because there was some demand by bankers for FDs to be linked with like equity benefit, or NPS scheme were demanding some kind of tax benefit, because we need greater savings for greater growth.
We need greater savings for greater role, all right, and the banks know how to do it.
9.
Hi, this is Adija from Money Control. I had two questions. One was on the fact that the economic survey had also raised some concerns about states' fiscal health and their borrowing, putting pressure on the sovereign borrowing rates also. I just wanted to understand, has the center thought about how do we want to tackle this with the states, because we are targeting a debt to GDP ratio, but we know overall debt to GDP ratio is the anchor that most global agencies look at and ideally needs to be looked at. Second, my question was on the FEMA rule changes. I just wanted to understand with the interaction with the investors or, the stakeholders, globally, what are the kind of demands or what are the kind of requests that are coming in, especially amid the status when it comes to foreign investor outflows? So what are we looking at, if we've thought about anything yet?
We're talking with states about their borrowing can only be done as a nudge conversation. Beyond that, the center cannot do. Equally, if you look at it, the center is also under Article 293(3), duty bound to make sure that the borrowings of the states are also monitored in a way. We can't curb them, but beyond their FRBM, we can sit with them and have a conversation. But that's about where it is. And I think largely states understand their duty under the FRBM Act. So I leave it there, you understand. But on this question, the next question, that NDA.
So on the NDI rules, there is a whole bunch of suggestions that we've got, but it's not like a review has started and a serious public consultation in a structured way started. So there have been, I don't remember from the top of my head, but some things on the definition of FDI itself, some investors have raised. And there are other such things, but when we like ma'am has announced today that a review will be taken place. So when we start the process formally, there will be formal interactions with investors and we'll take it forward.
237.
Third row. इसके बाद 2 लोग बचे हैं, last 2 questions after this.
I'm Nikunj Johri from Reuters. Ma'am, I have two questions. One on your announcement on exempting foreign companies that provide capital assets or equipments to contract manufacturers. They have been given a 5-year exemption. So will that help the likes of Apple and Samsung that have been ramping up production in India but face some tax uncertainty? And second, on the tax holiday for data centers, would that be extended to existing companies that have existing foreign companies that have data centers? And lastly, there was a suggestion in economic survey. I want to ask you whether the government would look at implementing it on diluting government stake in listed public sector companies. It suggested that you amend the definition of a government company through Companies Act and then lower your stake. So will that be given a serious thought? Thank you.
See, the contract manufacturing, that is the toll manufacturing exemption that has been given, essentially is for the companies which will give their capital goods. There will be no transaction, there will be no sale, no lease. It's just given because they have some reason to do it, business reason to do it. And it is utilized by the entity here to manufacture. So this will be in a bonded zone, customs bonded zone. Therefore, we are saying that if you bring your machine, and that machine is used by a local manufacturer to produce something, we will not consider this to be a PE connection to India, and we'll exempt you for 5 years. I mean, for 5 years, the possibility of it being PE because its machine is being used here is something we are giving him certainty by saying that we'll be exempting him for 5 years. So there'll be, for example, if a big company sends its proprietary manufacturing, testing, or some tools and machines here, and because of which its global income gets into the risk of being taxed, is what we are giving certainty on by saying that for 5 years we'll be exempting it.
The second part of your question, if you read the economic survey carefully, it talked about two alternatives. One is that we change the definition of a government company and bring it down from 51 downwards. And the second is we bring the equity below 51 following a strategic path, which could mean we look for a strategic partner, which could also mean a consortium or a joint venture approach where it may not be a government company, but it will still be a public or a government controlled company, which gives it more flexibility to operate. And as you know, economic survey is an ideation document. Once we consider that in the policy framework, we also have the Atmanirbhar Policy 21, which is doing very well. We will weave it all together. It is policy in evolution. And we will consider all these aspects before taking a step forward. Thank you.
11.
Ma'am, this is Anup Roy from Bloomberg. So your nominal GDP assumption is pretty conservative even this year. Given that CA has given a growth rate of 7.2%, so are we assuming inflation at 2.8% for the year? And does that show that inflation is structurally down in India?
Inflation is down in India and it is remaining there for some time. And inflation is just not the only one which is a deflator, but however, largely you depend on that. And I think therefore the assumption of the nominal GDP is realistic. So we cannot, for the reasons well known that you want a nominal GDP to be a higher number, cannot bring in factors which are beyond the usual calculation.
I think one more question we can take. 137. Take the mic.
I'm Rakesh Kumar from New Indian Express. My question is around the electronic manufacturing as you allocated 40,000 crore rupees. So just want to know, does it include the ISM 2.0 amount?
Does it include what?
Indian Semiconductor Mission 2.0.
That's a separate, no, ISM 2.0 is separate.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You already asked. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, friends, and welcome to this press conference on Economic Survey 2025-26. The Union Minister for Finance and Corporate Affairs, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman ji, tabled the Economic Survey 25-26 in the Parliament a short while ago. Please, अभी बाद में इसको बांटिएगा, हाँ प्लीज रख दीजिए, कुछ रख दो, बैठ जाओ. To brief us more on the key highlights of Economic Survey, we have with us Chief Economic Advisor, Shri V. Anant Nageshwaran ji. My warm welcome to you, sir. I welcome Senior Economic Advisor, Ms. Chandni Raina, Economic Advisor, Shri Chanchal C. Sarkar, Economic Advisor, Dr. Anuradha Guru, and Economic Advisor, Dr. Rosemary Abraham. Welcome to all of you. Today's press conference will go as follows. First, the Chief Economic Advisor will give a presentation on the key narratives from the Economic Survey 25-26, followed by a question and answer session. Over to Chief Economic Advisor, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and my colleagues, friends. It's a pleasure to stand in front of you and present the Economic Survey for 25-26 again. And wish you all a very happy and healthy 2026. We have 11 more months to go. So may the year be blessed with happiness and good health for all of you. This Economic Survey's cover actually symbolizes the key message that we have on the importance of manufacturing and exports for India's future growth in a very fragmented world and a fractious global environment. The survey takes you through 5 parts, the presentation as well, our current economic performance, and what are our priorities for the next 25 years, and how are we going to pursue them in the global context, which is somewhat unpredictable and even dangerous. And therefore, what kind of preparation as a country, as a society, we need to make to be able to achieve our priorities in a difficult global environment. And then we conclude. First, India is an indeed oasis of macro stability in otherwise a turbulent world. Numbers speak for themselves. Our GDP for this financial year is estimated, this is all IMF forecast, may differ slightly from what MOSPI has told us. IMF predicts 7.3% for the year ending March 2026. We have 7.4 from MOSPI. And the fund forecasts 6.4% for the next 2 years, 26-27 and 27-28. You will hear our numbers later. But the important thing is whether it is for the current financial year or the future, our India's growth numbers stand out in comparison to any other part of the world. And that is why we call India a oasis of economic performance in the global scenario. And if you look at the last few years in comparison to pre-COVID average, real GDP growth pre-COVID was 6.4%, and in FY25 was 6.5%. And this year, as I said, MOSPI is predicting 7.4%. Private final consumption expenditure growth is 7% for this year, on top of 7.2% last year. And in real terms, gross fixed capital formation is going to be a lot better than FY25 and definitely much better than the banking and corporate balance sheet crisis-ridden 2012-2020 period when it grew only 6.3% on average per annum. More importantly, we are achieving this high growth rates, consumption and investment spending amidst very moderate inflation environment. This year, it is projected to be about 1.7% on average so far for the first 9 months of the year, largely due to a deflationary trend in food price index. However, it's important to note that core inflation is also well behaved. If you take out gold and silver, core inflation is 2.9, well below the 4% threshold with which the headline inflation is pursued by the central bank. So we basically have benign inflation trends, which we expect to see continue in the next financial year as well. In fact, beneath all the slides, you will see the chapters in which they are covered in great detail, and we will just give you a broad brushstroke of what those chapters are saying on those relevant topics. Moving on from GDP and inflation to public finances, in 21-22, the government said we would bring down the COVID year fiscal deficit to less than half, and we are about to deliver on that this year, with an estimated 4.4% of GDP as a union government fiscal deficit. More importantly, the primary deficit, which is revenue deficit minus interest payments, has come down from 5.7 and expected to be 0.8% this year. We achieved it through improvement in tax buoyancy, tax collections, while increasing and improving the quality of expenditure. Effective capex rate went up from 2.7 pre-COVID to 3.9% post-COVID as a percentage of GDP. And that is the reason why last year we got 3 credit rating upgrades, beginning with Morningstar DBRS in May, Standard & Poor in August, R&I investment ratings from Japan in September. And so we now have BBB from S&P, BBB plus from the other two, and also India's CAD Edge also rates Indian sovereign rating at BBB plus. External sector, the forex reserves have more than doubled, compared to 11 years ago, from 341 billion to 701 billion. While much of it is due to lately the increase in gold valuations, definitely there is an increased accretion of foreign exchange currencies as well. Therefore, the import cover has picked up to nearly a year from 8.9 months in FY15. The current account balance is very well behaved, from 1.3% of GDP to now to about 0.8% in the first half of the current financial year. And external debt, which was 23.8%, is now down to 19.2%. So the external sector doesn't flash any warning signals as far as the macro picture is concerned. And if you look at the financial sector, we basically had the second decade of the millennium was marked by balance sheet troubles and repair. That is now showing up. The repair process is now well done, and the gross non-performing asset ratio is 2.2%. The net non-performing asset ratio is down from 6% in 2017-18 down to just 0.5%. But more importantly, the flow of resources to the non-government or the commercial sector, including households and businesses, and not just the credit market, but including the equity market, non-banking finance, etc. The annual growth rate in the last 5 years has been 29%. There is ample resource availability in the system for economic activity and investment spending. In the current financial year, the growth rate is 45% in the first 9 months compared to last year's 9 months. So overall, the resource availability augurs very well, and the resource mobilization as well for continued growth in investment spending and capital formation in the economy, and this is for the commercial sector, not government. Employment conditions have improved from the year when PLFS, the Periodic Labor Force Survey, was launched. 6% was the unemployment rate then, down to 3.2% in 23-24. The PLFS used to follow a July to June cycle, and that is now becoming a calendar year-based cycle. Therefore, the data for 2025 will be released sometime in March, and that is why we are showing you 23-24 data. Female labor force participation rate is up nearly 18 percentage points, and the unemployment rate in the first 9 months of the year has been steadily declining from 5.4 down to 4.9% in the last quarter. Now, in terms of other inclusive growth parameters, apart from the macro indicators, in rural development, 81% of rural households now have access to tap water. 2.9 crore houses have been constructed and 2.76 crore property cards issued under Swamitwa. When it comes to healthcare, 14.3 crores beneficiaries registered on the UBIN portal, 42.8 crore Ayushman Bharat cards issued, 1.8 plus lakh Ayushman Arogya Mandirs operational. And we include online gaming in this because it matters for mental health. So the banning of online gaming does matter for mental health and also for your wallet's health. So that is why we included the Online Gaming Act, Regulation Act of 2025 in this category. When it comes to education, there was a concern that post-COVID, because of the school shutdown for long periods, there would be a slippage in functional literacy and numerical skills. But the latest annual State of Education report does give us very encouraging signs. Reading skills in grade 3 up to grade 2 level has picked up by about 3 percentage points compared to what they were a decade ago, I'm sorry. And when it comes to numerical skills, the improvement is even more heartwarming, going from 25% to 33.7%. It is not to say that therefore nothing remains to be done. In fact, much remains to be done, but the direction of progress is quite reassuring. When it comes to enrollment, I think India has fixed that problem mostly. Now we are focusing on the quality of educational outcomes because up to middle school level enrollment is almost 100%. Up to high school, it's about 80%, and up to secondary school, it's about 60% or so. And in tertiary education, we have a target of 50%, and we are somewhere around 32%. So compared to where we were at the turn of the millennium in terms of enrollment, whether it is in school education or higher education, we have witnessed significant progress, so we can now focus more on educational outcomes. The number of educational institutions, whether it is universities, colleges, or medical seats, etc., all of them have expanded. So more details can be found in those chapters 11 to 13. Now, macro fundamentals, inclusive parameters are also backed up by digital and in terms of project execution. If you look at the project approvals by the PPP Appraisal Committee, which was barely less than 9,000 crores in FY23, now it's more than 1 lakh crores, and that too up to November only. The number of operational high-speed corridors in terms of length of kilometers in highways, just 550 kilometers, improved to 5,360 kilometers, and that too only up to December. The commissioning of railway networks from 1,500 to more than doubling to 3,100 plus. Port infrastructure having gone up in terms of cargo handled and the capacity of ports in terms of tonnage. The numbers speak for themselves. What is interesting to me when I was putting the survey together was the one on the bottom right. The growth of inland water transport as a very viable means of transporting people and goods. The growth rate of freight handled or goods handled by inland water transportation went from 18 million metric tons to 146 in the last 11 years, recording a compounded annual growth rate of 21%, and that's very impressive. So we are now tapping all sources of transportation mode to power economic activity in the country. Digital connectivity. India has a very steep decline in data costs compared to any other country in the world. Perhaps we are the cheapest, and of course, I would consider it a mixed blessing in different ways, and you will see later why it's a mixed blessing. Number of broadband subscribers has gone up from 6 crores to 100 crores. And in terms of the Department of Telecom, in terms of deregulation processes, the application approval time for centralized right-of-way portals has come down by 90% from 450 days to just 40 days. And in terms of rural connectivity, more than 13,000 towers operational, nearly 20,000 villages with 4G mobile, and 2.1 lakh gram panchayats connected with broadband. And therefore, given the good growth performance and the kind of foundation laid for sustained growth into the second half of this decade, we are now projecting FY27 growth at between 6.8 and 7.2%. So therefore, your midpoint is 7% on top of the growth rates we have achieved post-COVID, with the most recent estimate being 7.4 for FY26. So in other words, we are projecting, notwithstanding the global situation, we are projecting on the back of domestic accomplishments and domestic reforms, that the growth momentum is intact, and we will be able to grow at between 6.8 and 7.2% in real terms. We are aware that the base year revision will be announced in the end of February, and we are confident that we will be able to maintain this growth rate under the new base year and data from MOSPEED. Now, having talked about the performance of the economy, which gives us a very strong foundation, we go to the part 2 of this presentation. We look at the issues of long-term importance to the Indian economy, which are covered in detail in the economic survey. First, the outcome of rising global uncertainty for the country is the effect on the capital account and therefore on the currency. As an emerging market and a capital importing country, developments in India's external account reflects the impact of the rise in global uncertainty. India's gross FDI has been growing very well. In FY26, gross FDI is at least 10% higher than last year, but net FDI has been on the weaker side, partly because of profit taking by investors who have invested in the earlier decades, and also because of the compulsion that Indian businesses face to invest overseas. So ODI by Indian businesses has also increased. So as a result, net FDI numbers are not where we would like them to be, although they are not alarming. Portfolio investors have various reasons. One is the valuation and the lack of a so-called AI story in India, and also the overall uncertainty caused by the tariff situation is holding them back from committing more money into the Indian market. But as a contrarian, when sentiment towards India is actually on the weaker side, that is when the future prospective returns will look the brightest, actually. And if you look at the currency, therefore, as a country that depends on imported capital to meet a current account deficit, even though the deficit itself is on the lower side, if capital flows become weaker, naturally the currency reflects that. And that is what we have seen in the last 1 year, with the rupee weakening against the dollar by about 6 to 7%. This is in spite of the stellar economic fundamentals we have. So it has got nothing to do with the macro picture. It is simply accounting that if you are a current account deficit country, you need to import capital. And when capital flows become weaker due to global factors, remember, in the second decade, interest rates were close to zero in the developed world. They are now between 4 and 5% as well. So the opportunity cost of investing overseas is higher. So that is what shows up in the currency, and it is not a reflection of the macroeconomic fundamentals. The second issue that we need to tackle is long-term fiscal sustainability will require consistency in centers' efforts, which we have seen demonstrated in the last 5 years.